Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday. Forgot what day it was. And I just got home. I had a sort of meeting. We were supposed to have a meeting, but we ended up rescheduling. Anyway, yeah, I was supposed to have a meeting, but I didn't. So I was out. I ended up stopping at Sprouts on my way home and just picked up a few things, including this bowl of nuts right here that I've been eating and snacking on. It's really tasty. It's got pumpkin seeds, looks like almonds, some granola, also like these little white things. This must be ginger. This looks like ginger. Raisins, dried cranberries, and almonds. Oh, and I said raisins. Yeah, and I think this is ginger, actually. This is ginger. So anyway, I've been snacking on that. And yeah, I was just gonna do a few things while I was here. As you guys saw, on Monday, we lost a valued member of the community. I know, the tree outside my house. Well, technically it's outside of my neighbor's house. But yeah, I basically was here in my office plugging away at my computer, and all of a sudden I heard all of this like loud, aggressive churning and sawing and stuff. And I was like, what's going on? Then I get a huge knock, or like a really loud knock. It was like boom, boom, boom on my front door. And I was like, what's going on, And then I hear it again, boom, boom, boom. So I'm like, I go open the door, and the guys were out there, and it was a bunch of them, and there was tree, branches all over the ground. And he was like, you might want to move your car. And I was like, so I like moved my car up the street a little. And basically when I came back, I see this guy like hanging from the tree, look like he's mountain climbing or something, hanging from the tree and literally sawing the branches off. And then I watched for a little bit, but it started to rain a little. So I came back in and kind of observed from my kitchen. And then I think I went upstairs and also observed from there. But yeah, they took the whole tree down, and I watched them just literally take the rest of the trunk and just turn it into little bits, grind it up. And I don't know, I'm very connected to nature. So when I see that, when I see a tree getting cut down, when I see a tree getting turned into little, what do you call them? The little bits. Like, when I see that, I get really upset. Like, it actually really bothers me. And so I was pretty unnerved, and I could tell the guys could definitely tell that I was not feeling it, because when I was like walking back to my house, one of the guys, he pulls up in his truck, and he's like, we just had to do it. The tree was dead. We had to do it. He must have seen on my face that I was just like so upset that they were taking this tree down. But in the defense of my neighbor, the other day when we had a big storm, I heard part of the tree fall onto her house. It was like boom, boom, boom. It was like boom, 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 right? And I like run outside, and I was like, what was that? I was looking around for something. It sounded like a big, truck was just zooming through the neighborhood and like hitting every speed bump like so aggressively or something. But it turns out I like turned around, and it turns out that part of that tree that they cut down yesterday had actually fallen onto my neighbor's house. So, and it damaged her gutter. So it makes sense. And that was last week. So it makes sense that they ended up taking the whole tree out. But still, I was upset. So you guys got to see what that tree turned into. It is a nice stump now. But it is fascinating, actually. And the reason why I'm actually interested, and the reason why I actually kind of recorded that, is because I have the book that I have been reading. I'm almost done with it. I ordered it on Amazon, and I briefly mentioned that I was kind of learning. I was on a sort of like new learning process. And so I've been reading certain books. And the book that I just read was talking about how I'll keep this very succinct, but basically it was saying that any living thing that experiences trauma develops rings If it's in a human, the rings will be developed, or the rings will appear on the brain. So whatever part of the brain that the trauma, was affected or affiliated with. In plants, it'll happen on the stem, like wherever it was cut. Animals, similar thing, it'll appear on the brain or spots of the body, but it's rings. And so that made me very curious, because as I was watching the guys yesterday cut the tree apart, I was paying very close attention to the trunks, because, oftentimes we only know what the inside of a tree looks like after we cut it down. We don't really know what it looks like while it's still standing. So this got me really curious. I was like, I wonder if the tree actually has rings before it's cut down. So I watched and I observed, sorry, nuts in my teeth. And I observed, and it was hard to tell because there's a lot of sawdust, and but we're talking clean cut. So when the tree trunk was cut, they cut it into sections. So pieces of the trunk were kind of like scattered haphazardly across her front lawn, or front kind of area. And I was trying to pay very close attention to the inside, and honestly, I'm not even just saying this, I did not see any rings on the tree when it was immediately cut. I didn't see any rings. And so I was like, okay, maybe it's because I'm too far away, maybe it's because there's a lot of sawdust, but I was looking very clearly and I didn't really see any, at least prominent rings. They weren't prominent. So then that's why I went up to the trunk afterwards, and my neighbor, if she looked out the window and saw me, she probably was like, what is Nicole doing? But I wiped off all the sawdust and I looked, and honestly, the only ring that I saw was the center, the very, very center of the trunk, which I believe is like where when the water is absorbed through the roots, it kind of goes up through that sort of like center. It almost looked like a wet spot, like a dark ring on the interior. And it's almost like the water goes up that and then it's distributed to the branches and then the leaves. But other than that, I didn't see any rings. Like that's how we're supposed to sort of like date things, is by the rings on them. And I honestly did not see any rings. And so I'm going to continue to check on it throughout the week, and just to see if the rings develop. In which case, I find that to be very fascinating, because the tree, after being cut, that's extreme trauma, right? So it would naturally develop rings. Just like when humans experience a trauma, it's visible on the CAT scan, rings, like concentric rings on their brain. So anyway, I'm still reading this book. It's a whole long sort of, this book is part of a much bigger learning process for me. So I may or may not tell you guys about it, just because I don't want to, it is considered like alternative medicine. I don't like using that term, just because it's natural. If we're talking about like the way the natural processes of all living beings, it's not alternative. That's just the way it is. And our medical industry, yeah, you know what? Boop, not going to talk about this. This is what my podcast is for. I figure I'll keep my vlog a little surface level. We'll talk about fashion, and we'll talk about the weather, and we'll talk about gardening. But for the deeper topics, then that's what my podcast is really for. And the guests that I have on there, like we really, really go into it in a lot of my guest episodes. Anyway, that was a little plug. But so if you are interested in these types of topics, go and please check out my podcast, because I think you'll find a lot of the topics that I touch on over there to be very interesting. So anyway, though, back to the tree, I was really upset to see that they cut it down. So I don't know. They say that you're supposed to, like after a tree is cut down, you're supposed to put a flower pot, like a vase of flowers, on the tree trunk. And I don't know why. My neighbor is the one that told me that. So I don't know why. So we had a cut down tree when we first moved here. There was a tree stump like kind of right off of the back patio area. And I was like, okay. So I took one of my pots and put it there. The tree ended up sort of breaking apart, like, because there's mushrooms that grow kind of along that area, especially when it gets really, really wet. And so the mushrooms, the spores, I'm not really sure, something happened, but the tree basically disintegrated. So I ended up having to take that flower pot off, and now it's on the interior. of my porch area. Anyway, that was very long-winded. So sorry. I am going to get back to my snack and hop on the computer for a bit. I will tell you quickly about what I'm wearing. Yes, because that's why you're here. This top, I actually recently got it from H&M. It is still available because I did just get it, but it's like it's an Oxford, your typical Oxford shirt. And it's cotton. It's nice. It's lightweight and breathable. Today wasn't so hot, so I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I've got my Levi's and my little brown belt. And then for shoes, I'm wearing my Stout flats. So I will step back, or I'll kind of bring you guys down so you can see the whole look. White Levi's, brown belts, and then again the Oxford shirt. Going for a very classic kind of country club kind of vibe. Hair down, of course. It's kind of fluffy because I had it in braids, but yeah, this is the look today. Good morning, everyone, and what a morning it is. If you can kind of tell, my voice is a little hoarse. I had an epic night last night in not a good way. I have a little bit of advice for people. If there are toxic individuals in your life, don't let them get to you. Don't let them derail you from your path, and don't let them pull you into their toxicity. Because what I have learned over the years is that if I'm just charging forward, working on projects, working on things that I really care about, doing good things for either myself or my community or people around me, for some reason, it's almost like there's like some sort of unwritten law of the universe that says, okay, we're going to send as many adversaries towards you as possible, and you're going to have obstacle after obstacle to deal with as you go on this journey. So anyway, I'm not going to get into some things that I've been dealing with and some toxic stuff, but I just want to let people know, if you have toxic people in your life, don't let them bother you. Don't let them get to you. Cut them out. Block them if you have to. Just do whatever you need to do to have your own peace of mind and your own sense of peace, I guess. Your own zen. Don't let them bother your zen, or don't let them interrupt your zen. And with that, I will say I am extraordinarily thankful for my husband. I love him so much, and yeah, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But today is a new day, and I am approaching it in a magnificent way. I have my kefir here, so I'm drinking it for my gut health. I just had a green tea also, more to soothe my throat, but also for gut health. Because gut-brain connection, if your gut is clean, then your brain is clean and vice versa. So health and wellness are key, and keeping your mind and your body and your spirit in full wholeness is where it's at. It's where we all need to be. So yesterday, towards the end of the day, I went ahead and laid out all of the basil that I harvested. I harvested like a huge bowl of basil. So I went ahead and washed it and then laid it out. And that's typically how I dry my herbs. Sometimes it depends on how large it is. Like if it's a large bundle or if it's like a bunch of flowers, I'll tie them up and hang them like the traditional way of drying your herbs. But when they're like individual leaves, such as like the different types of basil that I have. Remember, I've got Genovese basil, I've got lemon basil, I've got Thai sweet basil, and I've got holy basil. So I've got 4 different variations of basil. And typically, depending on the gardening year, like this year I was actually super lazy, and all of those basils, except for the Genovese, they all self-seeded themselves. So they were from previous years. But like previous years, I've had like dark purple opal basil. I've had the wackiest varieties of basil, but they're all really delicious. I think basil might be my favorite herb. But anyway, so when it comes to the basils, I like to like pick off the leaves individual, or like the little kind of branches of leaves, if that makes sense, and then lay them out, just because it's a lot easier after they dry to kind of crush them up and put them in a mason jar. And that's typically what I do with my herbs, whether it's oregano, basil, what else do I do it with? Hyssop, I'll do it with the hyssop, mint, echinacea, thyme. I'm looking outside as I'm talking to see what herbs I have out there that I can see right now. So I'll typically do that method with all of those types of kind of herby herbs. And so I'll just dry them out. I'll put them on a clean, fresh, clean towel. Make sure there's no moisture in the towel because you don't want any mold building up on your drying herbs. And usually I like to harvest after the rain. That way they kind of get washed off naturally. But what I'll do is I'll harvest it, pick it off the plant, rinse it off quickly in a bowl, and then lay it out to dry. Like kind of pick them apart a little and then lay them out to dry. So yesterday I was laying out Genovese basil and Thai sweet basil. I was like, what am I doing? And then I've got another batch, which actually I did a quick little kind of B-roll of it in a previous vlog, but I've got another kind of layout of herbs drying, and that I've got holy basil and hyssop, and I think Thai sweet basil as well. So anyway, so that's how I dry my herbs. And the benefit of that is that come winter, when I can't grow basil outside or I can't grow any of the herbs outside, some of them are cold hardy, but the majority of my herbs are not. But by the time winter comes, I don't have to be kicking myself for not having any basil. So I will dry that out, crush it up, put it in a jar, and then I can use that for soups and seasonings and that type of stuff throughout the winter. So that's a great idea if you're not already doing it. And let's see, nothing else really to report. It's pretty warm in here, so I'm gonna go turn my air conditioning on. I typically turn it off just because it's kind of loud, and I didn't want it to like interrupt what I'm saying to you guys. So anyway, I'm gonna turn the AC on, drink my kefir, and do a little bit of work, and I'll see you guys later. I went back to the garden center and bought some new gardeny things. Got some rosemary and some phlox. So let's get home and get this planted. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday. I just got home not too long ago. I had a meeting out earlier and I happened to drive through a kind of country neighborhood with like a country club golf course type of thing. So I hope you all enjoyed that very quick little, clip of the golf course. I always love golf courses. I think they're so pretty with like all the green rolling hills. Now, of course, the gardener side of me or the farmer version of me is like, we could turn all that land into growing fields of corn and tomatoes or whatever. But anyway, I do think golf is a fun recreational sport. But anyway, I did just come back in from outside. I harvested a couple more stalks of okra. Stalks? Fruits? I actually don't know what the okra fruit, is it just okra? Is it fruits? Well, I'll figure it out. But I harvested a couple of those. They're so long and so they're really nice. I'm collecting a few. I think I'm gonna make a gumbo maybe this weekend or tomorrow maybe. I don't know, because I've got a lot of the hot banana peppers and I think one of the tomatoes I picked. Do I still have a tomato? No, I think I ate those. But there is one on the vine and there's a few nice clusters coming in on the tomato vine. But I've been picking the okra pretty much every day now because I want to gather a whole big bunch and make a beautiful yummy seafood gumbo. So that's the plan with that. And let's see what else. Yeah, I've got to get to work. I'm going to be, see, my phone is beeping. I am going to be on my computer for the whole rest of the afternoon, but I did want to quickly come on and just, I don't know, give a few more words of wisdom before the grass cutters come by. You could probably hear them in the background. So I apologize for the sound. But yeah, oh man, I think they're right there. Hold on, I'm gonna pause for a second. Where am I? Okay, the leaf blower guys passed by. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, I just wanted to just kind of quickly reiterate kind of what I touched on earlier in the vlog. As you kind of heard, I was having a bit of a tough time with some interpersonal relationships in my life, I'll say that. And I just wanted to kind of remind people that, when we're going through these situations, we really need to just remember that these are moments that are kind of happening then. They're not gonna last forever. Now, of course, if you are in a situation where it's an ongoing toxic relationship, then I would highly advise getting out of that. But for the most part, most of us, when we deal with these types of situations, it is kind of just like a brief kind of moment in that day or that hour or that week. And so it's important for us to just remember that and remember that if we kind of stay present, if we stay present in the moment, and if we look towards, the future, if we look towards tomorrow hasn't been created yet. It's not there yet. So it's always going to be better. It's always going to be better than our current existing moment if we are in, let's say, a bad situation. So we just need to remember that. And I want to say that there's a phrase that goes along with that, living in the present. I think it's today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. Tomorrow, yesterday is the past. Tomorrow is the future. I don't know. I actually don't remember that whole phrase. I've heard it like a gajillion times, but I just honestly don't remember how it goes. But the moral of that is that if we stay in the present moment, meaning just remember that, well, one, be present with our surroundings, acknowledge the experience that we're going through. Oftentimes, even tough situations are lessons for us to learn. And I learned a huge, immensely valuable lesson yesterday. I also learned who it is that I want to give my time to and who it is I want to give my energy to. And I think that's really important. If we look at the situations that happen, whether it's a coworker, a friend, a family member, a parent, a child, a boss, whatever it is, an employee, whatever the situation is, whoever it's with, if we really kind of stay present, experience what we're experiencing without kind of getting like, and then take the lessons away from that. So when the moment is over, when that moment is over, really kind of analyze what that lesson was that we were given in that moment. And for me, I learned several very big lessons, and it was almost so profound that I was just like, oh my gosh. It was one of those moments where you're like, wow, like I can't believe so many things. It's almost like the universe or God converged everything at once. So I had an answer to this question that had been lingering for a while. I had an answer to this question that had been lingering for a while. This situation resolved itself. This situation gave, a specific person an opportunity. It was just so many things converged at once. And I really did look at it from a bird's eye view. And I'm very connected, as I've mentioned many times before, I'm very connected to nature. So oddly enough, yesterday, so after I kind of talked to you guys, I went out, I can't remember what I did, but I was on the road, not even 3 minutes on the road, and all of a sudden I saw a huge hawk sitting right on, I guess they were doing construction on the road, so there was a construction sign, slow or 1 lane ahead or something like that, and it was kind of perched along the road. And there was this enormous hawk just sitting there, perched, just kind of cleaning its feathers or something like that. And I rode by and I was like, I did that thing. I was like, oh my gosh, there's a hawk. It was gorgeous. And I always look to nature to give me answers, because I think that God is in everything. God is in nature. And when certain animals come in my presence, they're giving me a message. And I very much firmly believe that there is a symbiotic, harmonious relationship between everything that exists. So the lessons that certain animals, or not the lessons, I should say, the messages come with people, situations, billboards, even animals, plants, friends, family. Lessons come from all different directions, or answers, I should say, to questions that you might have, or even lessons just in general. But anyway, so seeing that hawk it clarified to me that looking at that situation, that kind of bad situation that I had just gone through, from a bird's eye view was what I needed to do. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So seeing that hawk, literally not even 24 hours later, just sitting there, almost waiting for me as I drove by, because the second I drove past, he flew off. And I was like, was that hawk waiting for me? Oh my gosh, it was one of those situations. That to me was a lesson from beyond, right? That was a lesson from the universe, or a lesson from God, or a message. It was a message. Literally, it was a messenger bird telling me to look at the situation from a bird's eye view, because that's what hawks represent. At least in Indigenous American cultures, whenever you see a hawk, it's telling you to look at it from the hawk's point of view, from a bird's eye view. A hawk can literally be flying way, way, way up in the sky and can spot a mouse in a field. So the hawk has incredible vision. The hawk can see everything from every angle. And so that's what I did. As soon as I saw that bird, one, it was confirmation that that particular situation that had happened to me had to happen in that exact kind of way. And it also just reaffirmed for me that I needed to not be so involved in it, but look at it from a higher perspective. And so that's sort of my wisdom for you. It's not even my wisdom, it's the hawk's wisdom, is to really just be present in the moment, understand the experience that you're going through, and then look at it from a higher perspective, and then look for tomorrow. Look towards tomorrow, because tomorrow will always be better. Hopefully. Usually tomorrow is better. And I've got hummingbirds flying around now, but they come every day. And they like the echinacea right out front. Hi, oh, he's right there. Hello. He just flew right there, right behind the camera. So anyway, what do hummingbirds represent? And when I say represent, I mean Indigenous American cultures, my Indigenous heritage, animals represent certain things. So for example, if you see a fox, it means that situation or someone in your life is being sneaky. Foxy, fox have a certain connotation to them. If you see a snake, kind of something similar, there's a snake in your midst. If you see a possum or an opossum, I think, depending on what part of the country you're from or what part of the world you're from. But an opossum means to play dead, so meaning don't show your hand, because that's what they're known to do. A hawk, obviously, looking at something from a bird's eye view. A crane actually it's a bird, but the crane's imagery or the crane's representation is actually different, because all different birds have different meanings. For example, if you see a dove, it means that if you're not in a relationship, that means your true love is going to come to you very soon, or if you are in a relationship, it's confirmation that you are with your true love. So yeah, it's little things like that. I always look to nature. If it's like such a random animal that crosses my path, I'm like, oh my gosh, it to me is a very powerful lesson. And often when stuff like that happens, it really makes me kind of like really analyze what's happening in my life or the situations that I may have experienced, because I'm like, oh, this is a big lesson. Like, what am I? So I need to analyze something right now. Anyway, I could go on and on and on about that. This is the stuff I love. I love plants. I love gardening. I love spiritual kind of topics and conversations about the nature of reality and what this all means, hence my podcast. Yeah, I love it all. But anyway, just to kind of round out, because I do need to get to work. It's past 2:00, so I need to get to work. But I guess to summarize, the situations that we go through, again, they're lessons. And if we look at them as that, then we are less likely to react in such a negative or adverse way. We can kind of just sort of be like, oh, wow, that was interesting. Okay, what am I learning from this? All right. Okay, moving on. You see? So yeah, so that's my lesson for today. Your Thursday lesson, guys. I hope this is helpful for somebody. I really, really do, just because it's taken me decades to get to this place in my life. Decades. Several decades to get to this place in my life. And I feel so good. Even when situations come up, it's almost like this, I don't know, I can look at it from the perspective of the universe observing myself, if that makes sense. Like looking at it from this outside perspective, almost like a voyeur into my own life. Like it's like the Truman Show. Like I feel like I'm watching the Truman Show. And I'm Truman, and I'm watching, myself go through these situations. And I wonder how many other people feel that way about their lives. Anyway, I could just keep rambling, but I do need to get to work. So I will catch you guys later.